Chapter begins. The scene opens with the steering wheel of a car, gripped firmly by our protagonist. The screech of brakes follows, and we see the car, a sleek Italian Ferrari 458. The driver? Chen Yuan, our protagonist. He steps out of the car with quiet confidence. Suddenly, two nearby girls notice him. Excited, they pull out their phones and start snapping photos of him and saying the rich kid from a well-off university. Family just SW8- PPED his supercar. For another, after Chen Yuan steps out of his Ferrari, the scene shifts to the heel of a high-heeled shoe worn by a second-year student from the flight attendant class. As the camera follows her, she steps out of the car with grace and confidence. She's dressed in a striking red dress, holding a luxurious-looking handbag, and her beauty immediately stands out, elegant, glamorous, and eye-catching. As she emerges, two nearby boys watch the scene unfold. One of them, with golden hair, reacts with surprise and jealousy, exclaiming, "Barely stepped into college, and Chen Yuan's already hooking up with a second-year goddess from the flight attendant class. What luck that bastard has." Of course, if you're hot and loaded, you get first dibs on picking a partner. Was continued by a spec guy, not just first dibs. He practically has a monopoly. I've heard loads of first-year goddesses are head over heels for him. Continued by a short hair, boy students whisper and stare as Chen Yuan walks confidently. The stunning second-year flight attendant student in red by his side. A girl, insecure. Doesn't Chu Wanding have a better body than me? I hesitated for a bit and took half a day to make a move. How annoying. Do you think I still have a shot? Support a friend. Opportunities are self-made. Don't let that Zhou beat you down. Narration Chen Yuan. Internal monologue. Unfortunately, my lavish spendthrift lifestyle, envied by everyone, came to an end in my junior year of college. Because of that disaster, not only did my family's 3 travel agencies go under, but we also racked up $1 million in debt. Lao Zhang asked Chen Yuan if they should hit the internet cafe to play some games. Lao Zhang responded coldly, saying that Chen Yuan was mistaken if he thought they were still close. He added that Chen Yuan wasn't the rich kid from before who could summon and dismiss them at will. It's hopeless now that my parents and sister are crammed into a rented apartment. I used to go out every day. I have to move back into a college dorm. With this situation, forget about the freedom and carefree days of before. I don't even know if I can live a decent life. The next morning, the protagonist headed out to meet his girlfriend. Chen Yuan, that's it. Let's not contact each other anymore in the future. I hope you find a girl who understands you better, Chu Wanding said flatly. Chen Yuan stared at her, disbelief and hurt mixing in his eyes. Chu Wanding, 3 years together and you just drop it like that? Are you really that heartless? She gave a small, dismissive laugh. You talk like we were warriors of pure love. Don't you know how much passion there was between us? And one more thing, she added, turning slightly away. Don't call me Ting ever again. It sounds so outdated. If we ever meet again. She left the sentence hanging, then walked off without looking back. I would like to interfere in between the scene as expected, because, let's be honest, when a rich person suddenly becomes poor, it was clear what was coming. A breakup was inevitable. Let's continue our storyline. While walking without looking back, she jumped into a car which was expensive and luxury car. Mercedes-Benz E-Class Zhou Wanding again. Zhou Wanding, I'm leaving. A friend's here to pick me up. Chen Yuan. Wait, Zhou Wanding turns, annoyed. What more do you want? Chen Yuan. Those designer bags I bought you back then. You're probably not using them anymore. How about you return them to me? Zhou Wanding. Furious Chen Yuan. Have some dignity. I stayed with you for 3 years. All I got were a few cheap bags. And now you want them back like I owe you something? Chen Yuan. Shrugs slightly. If you can't return them, fine. I don't want to cash either. Zhou Wanding, rolling her eyes, turning away Chen Yuan. Softly, let's revive an old dream. Then, Zhou Wanding's new boyfriend calling out, Ting, get in. He's not worth the stress. Chen Yuan, you tell me that calling me Thing is outdated, but when he says it isn't. How funny. Protagonist responded coolly, no thanks, my place is nearby. In the protagonist's mind, finish him off? If I don't stand up for myself now, they'll think I'm a fool. His face tightened, eyes sharp. He forced a calm voice. "Bro, you're a good guy, and I appreciate the concern. But seriously, my place is just a few steps away." He added, a touch more serious this time. "One thing, wanting's a good girl. Please take good care of her in the future." The new boyfriend nodded with a confident smile. Don't worry. Ting's in good hands." The protagonist glanced at the boyfriend, expression unreadable, then said with a smirk, "Listen, a win man gives a woman the best. Bro, take notes on some of Wanning's habits." He stepped in just a little closer, not threatening, but firm. "First of all, she swears by Okamoto 001S. No substitutes. Second, don't bother with high-end stockings. They look good, but she'll ditch them in minutes. Not comfy enough." He paused, then leaned in slightly with a knowing tone. "And just so you're ready, nurse and cop uniforms? Her favorites in bed." Suddenly, the sharp sound of tires spinning broke the silence. The new boyfriend's car screeched slightly as he hit the gas, only to slam the brakes again. He ran his hand over the back of his head, letting out a dry chuckle. "Oh, bro, I just reached the good part," he added, voice lighter but laced with something deeper. "Maybe your choice was the right one, huh?" Raising a hand above his eyes to block the blazing sunlight now cutting through the sky. His voice softened. "Well, it's none of my business anymore," he said. "I hope your choice leads you to a perfect life." The sun lit the edge of his face as he lingered there for a second longer, then turned, slid light he thought he was shielding his eyes from. It wasn't just sunlight, a screen, massive, floating in the air like it had been projected from the clouds themselves. Translucent at first, but rapidly sharpening into clarity. That's why he raised his hand, because something unnatural was breaking through the sky. Out of nowhere, a screen had popped up in the heavens, like the sky itself had been hacked. Its show host, Chen Yuan AG, 21 height, 182 centimeters weight, 72 kg wealth, 87 yen health, 72% energy, 75% skill. None after looking at the screen that appeared in the sky. The protagonist stood frozen. "Huh, I'm the host." He said it out loud, but the words didn't feel like his. They just hung there. "I'm not on the brink of anything. I'm not dying. Not broken. Not crazy." His hands trembled slightly as he rubbed his temples, eyes darting between the flickering remnants of the screen. "So why the hell am I hallucinating?" A silence followed, not the kind that's peaceful, the kind that feels like something just took a step closer behind you, but you can't see it. System panel active. The perfect life system has finished loading. The letters shimmered with a metallic glow, cold and precise. Below that, more lines unfolded. A perfect life requires more than money. It requires admiration, specifically from the opposite sex. Time-limited task activated. Spend money on a suitable person of the opposite sex age-matched with an affinity level of 60 or higher and earn their admiration. Reward. The money spent will be returned to the host, multiplied by 3x. If the person's affinity increases by plus 3 points during the interaction, the refund will be doubled note. Only cash or personal savings can be used. Credit, loans, and borrowed money are invalid. Huh, a real guy should act like one. It's just a breakup. It's not a big deal. Said by Counselor Lixio, I've seen it all. And in moments like this, there's one phrase guys love the most. Protagonist was shivering as he was shocked. What's happening around him is because system panel was appeared in front of him. He was confused. If it's over, it's over. The next one will be better. Over Professor Lee's head, there it was, floating just above her like a soft projection, a faint pink heart icon, glowing gently in the air. Inside the heart, in clear digits, 65. Affinity level, 65. His eyes locked on the pink heart floating above Professor Lee's head, 65, glowing softly like it had always been there. And just beneath it, flickering like a watermark in the air, eligible target, affinity level confirmed in his mind. Everything went quiet, except his thoughts. Those numbers, the heart, the notes floating over her head. That means the perfect life system from a moment ago. It wasn't a hallucination. His stomach tightened. A mix of dread and adrenaline kicked in. It's real. All of it. The system, the screen, the tasks, the rewards. He glanced back at Professor Lee. She hadn't noticed anything, just kept walking, perfectly composed. But then Professor Lee walked up close to Chen Yuan with a gentle smile and said, "Cheer up, buddy, Chen Yuan." Hearing her voice, Chen Yuan rubbed the back of his head, his face turning red as he looked away and replied, "I'm fine, Professor Lee." Then, in his mind, he thought, "Then I really do have an edge." Professor Lee looked at him again and, with a soft voice, asked, by the way, have you thought about what I mentioned regarding the scholarship? Submit your documents soon. It's one of the few ways I can help you." Hearing that, Chen Yuan began sweating slightly. He held out his hand and said, "A few thousand yuan is just a drop in the bucket compared to my family's debts. Better give the scholarship to someone who needs it more." The professor paused, looking at him with a blank expression before replying, "If you put it that way, I won't push it." Then with a gentle smile, she added, "If you ever have any issues in the future, come see me anytime, even for love troubles." Professor Lee turned and began to walk away, then slightly glanced back over her shoulder and said with a smile, "I'll head out for now. Remember, I'm here if you need anything." Chen Yuan watched her leave, then, with a determined look in his eyes, thought, "Professor Lee meets the criteria for the system's to a limited task. Can I really get a multiplied refund for completing the task?" Right then, a notification popped up on his interface. Suddenly, Chen Yuan reached out and held the professor's hand in his, thinking to himself, "Why not test it out then?" As our protagonist held Professor Lee's hand, he said with excitement, "Professor Lee, thanks for caring so much about me. Hold on, I'll grab you a milk tea." Hearing that, Professor Lee instantly replied, "No need, Chen Yuan, ouch." Sometime later, Chen Yuan returned, handing her a milk tea and saying, "Professor Lee, here you go." Taking the milk tea from him, Professor Lee's face turned red as she softly said, "Thanks." Chen Yuan then glanced down at his phone, thinking in his mind, "The original balance was 87 yuan. I spent 6 on milk tea, and now I have 81 yuan left. Now I've received an income of 18 yuan, and the balance is 99 yuan. The multiplied refund is real." Right then, a new message popped up on his phone from the bank. It read, "Your account ending in 0098 received 18 yuan on May 10th at 1640. Current balance, 99 yuan. Sweat began to form on his face as he thought again. As long as Professor Lee's affinity towards me stays above 60, couldn't I keep spending on her repeatedly and keep getting system refunds? Professor Lee began walking away from him. Watching her leave, Chen Yuan's thoughts turned ambitious. This is my chance to pay off my family's debts. If I play it right, my family will be richer than ever. Then, filled with excitement, he looked at her and thought, Chen Yuan will be back to his old self, or even better. But concern returned to his eyes as he quickly calculated in his mind. But my current capital is only 949 yuan. It's so little. The priority now is to secure enough startup CA Pidal and find the right girls to spend on. But then, our protagonist was sitting alone in a quiet place, staring at his phone. He said to himself, I only managed to get 8,000 yuan in gold bars, 20,000 in loans, and 21,585 in business loans, plus the 99 yuan I already had. That totals 49,684 yuan. Making a smart face, he thought in his mind, in Professor Lee's eyes, I'm just a poor student with a bankrupt family. If I want her to accept an expensive gift from me, I have to be careful. An hour later, in front of Professor Lee's apartment, he stood with a luxurious bag in his hand, thinking, the bag is worth 39,800 yuan from this year's spring collection. I must say it's a knockoff, so that Professor Lee will accept it. He raised his hand and knocked on her door, still thinking, I don't know if Professor Lee has a partner. Hearing the knock, Professor Lee opened the door. She was wearing an apron and holding a spoon, looking like inside, and Chen Yuan followed, chuckling. She invited him to stay for dinner. He joked, asking if her boyfriend would mind, but to his surprise, she said she didn't have one. That got Chen Yuan thinking. Maybe this connection could go deeper. Later, as they ate together, Chen Yuan smiled and listened attentively. Above Professor Li's head, a heart-shaped icon glowed a little brighter, affinity +1. The relationship level changed from friendly to close. Chen Yuan smirked, proud of himself. The bag cost 39,800 yen, and with the system's triple refund, he earned 119,400 yen, almost 80,000 yen profit. He was starting to get the hang of this. Proudly, he thought, this is youth. This is victory. Trying to help out, Chen Yuan began untying Professor Li's apron, standing close behind her with a casual smile. But just as things seemed to be going smoothly, a loud voice rang out from the doorway. "What the heck are you doing?" It was a girl in a red coat and skirt, scarf around her neck, pulling a suitcase. Professor Li's younger sister, Li Ming. Both Chen Yuan and Professor Li froze. Chen Yuan panicked and quickly stepped back, hands up, still holding the apron. Professor Li quickly introduced him as her student. Li Ming raised an eyebrow and teased, "He's up to no good," before glancing at her sister and smirking, "Cheeky." A student trying to win over his professor. Professor Li blushed and nudged her playfully, telling her not to be ridiculous. Chen Yuan slipped out quietly, hands in his pockets, already deep in thought. Professor Li was nice, and their bond felt genuine, but their student-teacher relationship had its limits. Unlike Chu Wanding, who was clearly only after money, Professor Li had sincerity. As he walked and pondered who to focus on next, a voice called out to him, "Brother Yuan." "Bro." It was Lao Huang, rushing over in distress. "My goddess, Fong Minhui. She went to the movies with that damn Li Jianping." Chen Yuan's thoughts turned quickly. Fong Minhui, the most beautiful girl in the sophomore international trade class. That could be worth looking into. Chen Yuan was momentarily stunned, his steps halting as he looked up in surprise. Beside him, Lao Huang wore an expression of pure disbelief, his mouth slightly agape. And then, finally, the scene unfolded before them. Two girls walked out of the coffee shop, each holding a Starbucks cup. The first was Fong Minhui, radiant as ever, her short hair fluttering slightly in the breeze. She looked like a goddess under the city lights, effortlessly elegant, as if stepping out of a dream. Walking beside her was another girl, dressed in a sleek maroon dress, none other than Li Jianping. She had a cool, confident air about her, a quiet boldness in the way she carried herself. The two chatted casually, unaware of the chaos their appearance was causing just a few feet away. Chen Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly, while Lao Huang looked like he had just witnessed the betrayal of the century. Lao Huang, cheeks flushed red and his carefully shaped eyebrows twitching with emotion, clutched his chest and forced a hopeful smile. "Smile. She only went to the movies with him. They didn't go to a hotel or anything. I'm so happy. I still have a chance, right?" His voice trembled slightly, but the sparkle in his eyes remained stubbornly bright. Chen Yuan stood beside him, glancing over with a mix of pity and disbelief. "Getting a girl to like you has made you lose your dignity, Lao Huang," he thought, shifting his eyes to the side with a subtle sigh and a bead of sweat forming on his temple. How do you expect this to end well? But just as he was mentally preparing to lecture Lao Huang, something caught his attention. His eyes widened in shock. "Huh," he muttered under his breath. Fong Minhui had just looked over, and their eyes met. For a brief moment, the world seemed to still. Then, above her head, a familiar pink heart icon flickered into view, brighter than before. Affinity, 72. Chen Yuan's mind raced. "Oh my god, she has a principal affection too." His jaw nearly dropped. "And it's even higher than Professor Li's." Then suddenly, without paying attention to our protagonist and his friend, both girls walked right past them. Hui Hui's friend glanced at her and said, "Minhui, did you know Chen Yuan got dumped by his girlfriend?" Hearing that, she simply responded, "Huh," without even lowering the coffee cup from her mouth. Then the girl said again, closing her eyes with a disappointed look, "Chen Yuan." TSK. Hui turned slightly, glancing back at our protagonist. "Chen Yuan," she thought in her mind. Then a memory flashed. She remembered handing a bottle to him during basic training. Her cheeks flushed red. During basic training at the start of the semester, I shouldn't have encouraged you to get close to him or even buy him drinks. But the moment passed, and both girls continued walking toward their destination. Hui Hui's friend spoke again. Rich guys have bad attitudes, and it's understandable they act arrogantly when they're loaded. But even after his family went bankrupt, he's still as cocky as ever. Anyone would have dumped him. Good thing they didn't end up together, or it would have been 3 years of wasted youth. Hearing all of it, our protagonist looked back at her. When he saw her, a notification rang in his mind. Her love value was falling rapidly. I finally found someone who thinks highly of me and can generate profits. So why are the values dropping so fast? With a determined look, he thought, no, I can't just sit back. He suddenly turned and grabbed his friend with both hands. Lao Huang, tell me, if Fang Minhui and I end up together, would that bother you? With a fake confident tone, his friend replied, the point is, you can't win over the coarse flower. Do you still think you're that rich guy driving a series for? But seriously, I wouldn't mind, as long as she's not with Li Zhanpeng. I don't care who she's with. With excitement flashing in his eyes, our protagonist broke into a jog, calling back, good bro, I was hoping you'd say that. I'm gonna give a shot. His friend shouted after him, Brother Yuan, are you serious? Our protagonist approached the girl and greeted her brightly. Comrade Minhui, but before she could answer, her friend stepped in front of her, blocking him with a protective stance. Chen Yuan, what do you want with our Minhui? Our protagonist, sweating a little, said awkwardly, I wanted to ask if you're free tomorrow. I booked a table at Xing Sushi. Could you join me? Hearing that, the girl blinked in surprise and thought to herself, is Chen Yuan asking me to have dinner with him? Then she replied out loud, Xing Sushi? That Japanese restaurant with a minimum spend of 1,000 per person? Do you have money? Our protagonist gently scratched his head and said, after dinner, come with me for a walk. I want you to help me pick out a birthday gift for my sister. If possible, let me know by noon tomorrow. He turned to leave, waving his hand behind him. I'm off. We'll talk tomorrow. His friend, still standing in the middle of the crowd, watched him go, mouth wide open in shock. As he disappeared, the girl looked at her friend and said this. I just watched a movie with Li Zhanpeng, and now I'm going to dinner with Chen Yuan. Is that okay? Her friend looked at her with wide eyes and said, what's wrong with that? It's top-notch Japanese food. Then she held a finger up and added, Chen Yuan might be a bit arrogant, but at least he's handsome. Li Zhanpeng only has his family's money. If Chen Yuan's family bounces back, he'd easily surpass Li Zhanpeng. Walking ahead and grabbing her phone, her friend said with a grin, you lose nothing by going, it's just dinner and a stroll. Nothing serious. I'll help you reply to the message later. The girl let out a soft sigh and said, all right, fine. At dusk the next day, our protagonist and Hui Hui walked side by side. After a short while, the waitress of the restaurant entered their private room, serving their Japanese-style dishes and saying, Dear Mr. Shun, here is your menu for two. Enjoy your meal. Once all the dishes were carefully placed on the table, the waitress bowed slightly and left the room. Hui Hui glanced toward our protagonist and said, Chen Yuan, I heard your family is going through hard times. You don't need to spend that much. Hearing her words, our protagonist calmly replied, Don't worry, the Japanese food here, the flavor is incredible. It's worth it. But inside, while looking at her and feeling the warmth rise to his cheeks, he thought to himself, Hui Min's attitude. It's only been 2 months since I last played cards. I must stay calm. He quickly reached for the cup of tea and took a slow sip. Then Hui Hui suddenly asked, Why did you suddenly invite me to dinner? Chen Yuan, is it really to help you pick a gift for your sister? Without looking at her, our protagonist replied, I've always wanted to invite you to dinner, but I couldn't find the right moment. And with just that one simple line, her love value points dropped again, this time to 66. Then our protagonist looked toward her, sweat rolling down his face as he thought to himself, Aren't you satisfied with that answer? The affinity level is dropping again. Trying to steer the conversation, he said, Ahem, during basic training, you often bought me drinks and we chatted on WeChat at night. I've always remembered that. Hearing his words, the girl looked at him with a shocked expression, her face turning red as she said, You still remember that? And right at that moment, her love value point increased to 67. Then, looking away from him shyly with a soft blush, she lowered her gaze to her hand, and her points quietly rose again, up to 69. Our protagonist gently touched his face with one finger and softly said, "How could I forget?" But inwardly, he was panicking. "Calm down, I need to stay calm." Then, 40 minutes later, after finishing their meal, both of them stepped out of the room together. Standing in front of the receptionist, our protagonist reached into his pocket to pay. The receptionist looked up and said, "Sir, your total comes to 2,920. As a member of our restaurant, with the discount, it's 2,774. And our protagonist simply replied, "All right, thank you." After a while, both of them walked out of the restaurant, casually strolling through the city alley. Our protagonist walked just a little ahead, while Hui followed behind, stealing glances at him. In her mind, she thought, "My monthly budget is only 3,000, and this meal is nearly a month's worth of expenses." Meanwhile, Li Jianping, when we went to the movies, he arrogantly said we'd first eat at the school cafeteria and next time dine out. Even though his family has money, he's so stingy. At that moment, her love value point ticked up to 73. Then suddenly, a message popped up on our protagonist's phone, and right along with it, a system notification appeared in front of him. Time limit task. Spend on a person of the opposite sex with an affinity level over 60 and win their admiration. Task reward. The amount spent will be refunded, multiplied by 3. For every 3-point increase in affinity, the refund doubles. Seeing that, our protagonist's eyes lit up as he glanced at her, thinking to himself, it was 72 at first, now it's 76. That's it. That feeling of earning 10,000 yuan from just one meal is incredible. Meanwhile, the girl looked toward him with a soft smile, her thoughts quietly drifting. The more I look at it, the more I like it. Maybe it's the power of money. Then Hui gently took his hand and smiled. "Come on, Chen Yuan, we still have to hit the mall to pick out a gift for your sister." As they approached the mall together, our protagonist suddenly noticed a familiar face, his ex-girlfriend, Chu Wanding, walking in with her new boyfriend. The guy glanced over at Chen Yuan and muttered, "Shopping mall? Hey, Wanding, what's that guy doing here?" Chu Wanding looked up, spotting Chen Yuan instantly. A bead of sweat rolled down her cheek as her expression soured, and she thought in her mind, "What is he doing here? He dumped me yesterday, and today he's already out with someone new?" Her new boyfriend looked annoyed and barked, "What the hell? How dare a poor student spend money in a place like this?" Then, gritting his teeth, he thought to himself, an exploited worker, had to buy so many bags just to win over Chu Wanding, and this guy with all his debts still has girls with him? So infuriating. But our protagonist, staying cool, glanced at Hui and softly said, "Minhui, let's hit some other stores first." But before they could turn away, the new boyfriend smirked and called out, "Chen Yuan, since we're here, why don't we go in and take a look? After all, window shopping costs nothing." Chu Wanding stepped forward too, glaring at him with annoyance. "Chen Yuan, what are you doing here? Who is she?" But our protagonist stayed calm, sliding one hand into his pocket and looking at them confidently as he replied, "What a coincidence. I came shopping for a gift for my sister." Then our protagonist looked towards them and thought in his mind, "At first, I thought of giving them some dignity and not embarrassing them in public, but you two insist on meddling." Without hesitation, he took Hui's hand and began walking away, saying confidently, "Now that the system has issued a task, there's no reason not to act. All right, let's go in and take a look." Meanwhile, at the receptionist counter inside the store, two receptionists began whispering and arguing about who should attend to them. One of them muttered quietly, "Chen Yuan used to be a regular customer. You handle him." But her colleague immediately frowned and replied, "I'm not going. I mean, what's the point of serving a bankrupt ex-rich? Last time that fake socialite came, I ended up running around, and in the end, she just sampled things without buying. It's your turn." Annoyed, the first receptionist shot her a sharp glare and snapped, "I told you to go, so go." Then, on the other side, Chu Wanding picked up a bag and turned to her boyfriend with a sweet voice. "Brother June, I've made my choice, can you pay?" The receptionist looked at her colleague, then turned to Wanding with a polite tone, "Sure, Miss Zhou." just a moment. But her colleague, clearly fed up, grumbled inwardly while watching her work. Quality customers who make steady purchases are yours, while the problematic ones who don't buy are mine. How unfair. Then in front of our protagonist's ex-girlfriend, two store assistants were enthusiastically showing her a collection of bags. One of them said with a smug smile, "Miss Zhou has excellent taste. These accessories perfectly match her style, unlike some customers with no sense of aesthetics." He backing her up, the other girl added, "Miss Zhou, these accessories also go very well with the bag you just chose. Would you like to try them on? They look great, though they're a bit pricey. Altogether, it comes to about 100,000 yuan. She then presented a box filled with various accessories. Meanwhile, our protagonist turned toward his friend and spoke softly, "Minhui, don't worry about saving money for me." But the receptionist serving their side didn't even bother to offer him anything. Her eyes stayed fixed on Zhou, wanting with admiration, clearly picking sides. Then Minhui pointed towards one of the bags on display and smiled. "I think this bag is pretty, and that other one has a youthful design that your sister would love." Without even changing her expression, the disinterested receptionist said to them flatly, "Together, they cost over 50,000 yuan. That's pretty expensive on the other side." Chu Wanding's new boyfriend began sweating nervously as he eyed the price tags. In his mind, he screamed, 100,000 yuan? What a spendthrift. I thought a 20,000 yuan bag would be enough. Wow, she wants a full set for 100,000 yuan. Wanding leaned in close to him, gently tugging his hand as she whispered, "Pay up, Brother Jun. Chen Yuan is watching. Show your strength," as a boyfriend in front of him. But her boyfriend avoided eye contact, panicking internally. 100,000 yuan as boyfriend power? I don't have that much money on this card. Then, to their shock, our protagonist suddenly pointed confidently at the bags and accessories and declared, "Miss, I want both bags. And also the accessories that the other miss recommended." The moment those words left his mouth, both Zhou Wanding and her boyfriend stood frozen, stunned as they turned to look at him in disbelief. And hearing our protagonist's words, even Minhui was shocked. She instinctively put her hand over her mouth and looked at him with wide eyes. The receptionist, who had been casually showing the items, now wore a stiff, annoyed expression. Her whole demeanor changed as fear crept in. She stared at Chen Yuan, trembling slightly, and thought to herself, "What? The accessories too? Weren't you supposed to be broke?" Her hands shaking as she tapped on the screen to calculate the total, she finally stammered out, "Mr. Shen, the two bags plus the accessories total 131,000 yuan. Our protagonist looked at her calmly, thinking in his mind, "How curious. Right after the food refund, I have exactly that amount." With a relaxed smile, he handed over his card and said gently, "Here you go, pay by card." The receptionist, now sweating nervously, quickly nodded, "All right, I'll bring them right away." But deep inside, she was breaking down, thinking, "I thought it would be a waste of time," but he not only bought two bags, he also added a set of accessories. One sale exceeded 130,000 yuan. I didn't expect Mr. Shen to be even more generous and carefree than before. Then suddenly, his ex-girlfriend exploded in anger. Unable to hold it in, she shouted, "Chen Yuan, weren't you supposed to be bankrupt? Where did you get all that money?" Her new boyfriend stepped forward. "Try back her up, you. Don't take out. A loan, did you?" But the flustered store worker, overwhelmed by the sudden rush and focused only on completing the transaction, ignored all of them, eyes glued to the terminal as the payment processed with beads of sweat rolling down her face. As for our protagonist, he looked towards them with a confident glare and said, "Think what you want. Looks like you're not broke either. Why don't you buy another bag for Chu Wanding? It only cost a bit over 20,000 yuan. That's nothing for you." Hearing that, both of them turned to glare at Chen Yuan, their expressions full of anger. But Chen Yuan wasn't done. He continued calmly, "A man should not only have class, but also be generous. That watch of yours must cost at least 600,000 or 700,000 yuan. You wouldn't mind spending a bit more, would you?" Hearing those words, Chu Wanding immediately turned to her boyfriend and pushed him. "Brother Jun, show your power, don't let him." But Ho Jun was already sweating, and in his mind he was screaming, "That ain't eight. I bought it with a loan. I can't tell Wanding about this. What a pain. This guy's hitting a sore spot. Then, trying to dodge the situation, he quickly pulled out his phone and said awkwardly, hold on, I gotta take this call. And with that, he quickly walked away. Chu Wanding looked after him in disbelief and said sharply, Ho Jun, how could you? A short distance away, Ho Jun shouted into his phone, trying to keep up appearances. Who gave you permission? I told you, projects over 1 million aren't decided without me. But Chu Wanding turned away, glaring at Chen Yuan one last time as she huffed, Chen Yuan, take care of yourself. With that, she walked out of the shop. At that moment, the values above their heads updated. Ho Jun's negative emotion level was now -35, and Chu Wanding's had dropped to -45. Seeing the numbers, our protagonist thought in his mind, did the negative emotion points already hit the target? Well, it's not worth arguing with them anymore. What's important is that the task is done. Then our protagonist looked towards his friend and handed her a bag as he said, Minhui, here, this is for you. But the girl raised both her hands and looked at him, saying no, Chen Yuan, it's too expensive. Still, Chen Yuan handed the bags to her with confidence and said, it's nothing, just a bag. You had to put up with those nasty comments, so this is my way of apologizing. Please take it. Taking the bags in her hands, she smiled and said, well, if that's the case, then thank you. Chen Yuan, but Chen Yuan wasn't done. He handed her another bag full of stuff and added, don't thank me so fast. Also this and all of this is for you. Hearing that, she was stunned and asked, wasn't this for your sister? But Chen Yuan calmly put one hand in his pocket, looked at her with confidence and said, I don't know if she'll like it, but I know at least this bag is something you'd like. Meanwhile, in his mind, he thought, are you kidding? If I buy it for that girl, Shan Xian, she'd definitely scold me for splurging and then tell her parents. These 2 bags were meant for you from the start. Take them, so I can get the refund. Minhui, holding the bags in her hands, stepped a bit closer to him, her face turning red as she thought. One is already too much, and now the whole set? Won't it give her a bad impression that I'm a gold digger? But then, with a bead of sweat rolling down her face, our protagonist friend looked at him and said, I can't Chen Yuan this before she could finish. Chen Yuan gently held her hand with both of his and smiled. Don't worry. This is just the beginning. We got plenty of time ahead. Accept it, or I'll feel bad. Just then, a sudden notification appeared right in front of Chen Yuan. Congratulations, host. You have completed the limited time task. This task generated 15 negative emotion points, which will be the amount spent additionally combined with the refund for expenses on the opposite sex. The total refund is the same amount spent. Then, another notification popped up right after. Construction Bank. Your account ending in 0098 received 786,000 yuan on May 11th at 2100 hours. Current balance, 786,356 yuan. Chen Yuan and Minhui stood quietly, still holding each other's hands. Their eyes met under the soft glow of the streetlight. People passing by slowed down, curious glances landing on the two. Minhui's face turned redder with each second, unable to hide her shyness. Then, Chen Yuan thought to himself, Minhui is now my money tree. I have to take good care of her. I can't let her affinity level drop like before. With a gentle voice, Chen Yuan said, Minhui, let's head back to school. It's getting late. But in his heart, another thought slipped in. Even though I'm itching to play, these things shouldn't be forced. Better to let them flow naturally. Minhui looked at him with blushing cheeks, her expression softer than ever. The scene then shifted to the staircase leading to the college dorms. A group of flashy students was coming down together, loud and chatty. One of them wore a full Gucci outfit from head to toe, walking with swagger. Another, in a cap, was laughing as he pointed toward Chen Yuan. He said, Chen Yuan is different from Li Zhangpin. He didn't mention going to a hotel, although I did think about it. His mocking tone sparked more laughter from the group, clearly throwing shade at tone of the boys in the group, with short hair, chimed in loudly, we didn't expect you to beat us to it. Then another guy with specs and a round face threw his hand in the air and grinned. This calls for a celebration. You're treating us to dinner. right? And it can't be just any cheap place. The boy dressed head to toe in Gucci smirked and nudged the one next to him, turning the volume up so Chen Yuan could hear every word. He added, "Let's invite the whole class and throw a huge party." Just as they started laughing again, Chen Yuan reached the college dorm door. He unlocked it and walked in calmly. Inside, one of his dorm mates was sitting on a chair, a headset resting around his neck. He slammed the desk in front of him and turned toward Chen Yuan with an annoyed look. "Did you hear that? That damn Li Jianpeng, after watching a movie with the coarse flower, wants the whole school to know. Clearly, this is aimed at us, the 503. But Chen Yuan, cool as ever, placed his hand on his friend's shoulder and said calmly, "His glory days are numbered. Minhui won't be with him." Hearing that, his friend shot him a glare and replied with an annoyed tone, "Stop showing off. Minhui went to the movies with him last night. Who knows if they did more than that?" He continued, voice rising slightly. "Besides, she didn't agree to go out with you today either, which means she's really with Li Jianpeng." Hearing that, Chen Yuan said nothing. He just stood there, staring at his phone in silence. Chen Yuan while pretending to joke. Suddenly, a thought ran through our protagonist's mind. "Suddenly I have more than enough money. Maybe tomorrow I'll visit home." Xiao Yuan is back. The next day, at Chen Yuan's house, his uncle, Shen Yaoda, sat on a family sofa with a smug, confident smirk. Seeing our protagonist step in, he spoke with arrogance. "Xian Yuan is back." Our protagonist glanced at him casually. "Hey, uncle." Sitting off to the side on a separate sofa, his father raised his eyes and said sternly, "The adults are talking. Come inside and wait a bit. I need to discuss something with your uncle." Then he turned to his brother. "Brother, I understand your situation, but I hope you can give me a little more time. I'll soon receive payment for a batch of goods and pay you back a part." Our protagonist quietly stepped into his room, but the conversation outside was loud enough to reach his ears. His uncle sneered in mockery, turning to his father. "Brother, a part isn't enough. I need the full amount in the coming days to cover my expenses." But then his mother snapped back, her voice full of anger. "Shen Yaoda, it's not about how you do it. When you didn't have money to open that car wash, who lent you 300,000 yuan? Did I pressure you after lending it? Now that we've lent you 200,000 yuan, you keep pressuring us over and over. What does that mean?" His father turned to his wife, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "Stop talking, brother. He has his difficulties. Doesn't he know what his difficulties are?" I asked his wife, "And he doesn't have any urgent expenses these days." Uncle Shen Yaoda leaned forward with a mocking grin. "Paying off debts is natural. Lucky we're family and can talk calmly. If you were a stranger, you'd have seen what aggressive collection looks like." His mother stood up, furious. "Now you're going to collect violently? My God, you Shens are ungrateful. What was the point of being kind to him before?" But her husband, still trying to stay neutral, looked at her and said, "Stop talking nonsense. If you still have some gold jewelry, find it and sell it. When we have money, we'll buy more." His mother's face sank with disappointment. "Enough, buy more. First, let's pay off the family debts." Then, in that tense silence, a sudden notification flashed before our protagonist's eyes. A perfect life shouldn't be burdened by debt. Another one followed. Time limit task. Pay off the family or personal debts. Task reward. The amount paid in the debts will be refunded to the host multiplied by 2. The first time you pay 200,000 yuan, you'll get 1 million yuan for exclusive car expenses. Our protagonist's eyes lit up. He grinned slightly as he thought to himself, "Wow, this task came at the perfect time." His expression softened, a calm light in his eyes. "Even if there wasn't a task, I plan to help ease the family's burden today." Sometime later, in the quiet of their bedroom, our protagonist's mother sat holding a small box, a sad expression on her face. "All the jewelry you gave me is here. No matter how hard it was, I never sold them. They're worth a few thousand. Let them be taken now. Looks like 2 gold rings got lost during the move. Oh." Outside the room, our protagonist overheard everything. Guilt crept into his thoughts. "In my first year of college, when I didn't have enough money to buy Zhou wanting a bag, I went into mom's room and sold 2 gold rings. Back then, I was such a lousy kid." Suddenly, he burst into the room, shouting, "Dad, Mom, I've got money." His parents turned to him, both wearing a knowing, almost disappointed expression. Now's not the time for jokes. You've seen the situation at home today. Use that money to top up the cafeteria card. Don't be stupid. Awkwardly rubbing the back of his head with one hand and pointing a finger with the other, he grinned. "I really do have money, Dad." Listen, isn't that the sound of a transfer? 200,000 just then, a message pinged on his father's phone. Both parents stared at it wide-eyed and shouted at the same time, 200,000 yuan. His father shouted in disbelief, "Son, where did you get all that money?" Our protagonist scratched his head, embarrassed. "I used to get a good allowance, and I invested it in cryptocurrencies with a friend. He told me not to touch it, that it had huge growth potential. I just cashed it out recently." He thought to himself, this excuse should be believable. After all, back then I did get a decent allowance. His mother's eyes sparkled with tears and pride as she gave him a gentle thump. "Incredible, son. You bailed us out." His father turned to his wife and nodded. "All right, first we'll pay off the debt and get rid of that problem." A few minutes later, both parents stepped out of the bedroom. Facing Chen Yuan, his father held out the phone. "Yuan, our debt is cleared." His mother, now visibly angry, pointed straight at the door. "Now that you got the money, you can leave. In the future, it'd be better if our families didn't have so much contact." Sweating nervously, Chen Yuan stammered from the couch, "Sister-in-law this." But she snapped again, fire in her eyes. "Don't you get it? I told you to get out." In the next instant, his parents marched over and kicked Chen Yuan out of the house. Standing outside, Chen Yuan stared back at the door and thought bitterly, "My cousin owes almost 100 million out there. I thought that the longer time passed, the less money he'd have, so I came to collect as soon as possible. How'd he pay everything so quickly? Does my cousin's family have a new business that's making profits? Then will they prosper again? With what I did today, how can we get along in the future? Ugh, why did I come?" Back inside, a system notification flashed in front of our protagonist. The host has completed the first debt payment objective. The system will send the reward on time. Construction Bank. Your account ending in 0098 received 400,000 yuan on May 12th at 11:39. Current balance, 1,118,356 yuan. Another followed immediately. Construction Bank. Your account ending in 0098 received 1 million yuan on May 12th at 11:39. Current balance, 2,186,356 yuan. Our protagonist grinned as he stared at the screen. Excluding the 1 million yuan for buying a car, my net worth has already exceeded 1 million. I never expected that by coming home, I not only help my parents in a critical moment, but also get such a huge reward. But to completely settle the family debts, there's still a long, long way to go. He looked toward his parents again, deep in thought. So, even if I gave all this million to Dad, it wouldn't be enough. The best move is to use this capital to generate more money. Calculating it out, the most I can give Dad now is 200,000 yuan. He turned toward them with a soft smile. "Dad, I actually still have a portion I haven't withdrawn, around 200,000 yuan. Do you need it urgently now?" His mother, looking concerned, held his hand and said gently, "I think we could save it for now. The other debts aren't that urgent." His father, face slightly red and shy, looked at him and said, "Wait." Then he slowly asked Chen Yuan, "Hey, Chen Yuan, first take 50,000 yuan for your dad." Hearing that, Chen Yuan grinned and, with a joking expression, said, "That's right, old Shun, this feels familiar." Then a memory flashed in his mind back when he used to ask his dad for money. He thought, the way my dad acts now is exactly the same as when I used to ask him for money. Genetics is really something interesting. A while later, when Chen Yuan was going downstairs, he bumped into Professor Li with a bright tone. He looked at her and said, "Teacher, he's back." The professor returned his gaze with a gentle smile and replied, "Yes, there are no classes this afternoon." Suddenly, Chen Yuan stepped closer with a teasing tone and said, "Are you free tonight? I want to invite you to dinner. Last time you invited me, so I should return the favor." But just as he spoke, his eyes caught a glint from behind her. Her sister, Lin Ming, was standing there, staring at him with an intense gaze. The professor called out, "Hey, Lin Ming." Chen Yuan instantly felt a chill run down his spine. His thoughts screamed, "The teacher's sister is like my nemesis. Better not mess with her better." Both beauties stared at him, and Chen Yuan quickly squeezed past them and made his escape, saying awkwardly, Teacher, I just remembered I have something to do at school. Maybe I'm not free tonight. Let's skip dinner, I'm out." After he bolted away, Lin Ming looked at her sister and said in an annoyed tone, "Told you that guy had bad intentions." With an awkward expression, the professor replied, "Maybe it's just dinner, and even if he had other intentions, I couldn't accept it." Outside the building, Chen Yuan was sweating and muttered to himself, "So hot." Then, while driving, his thoughts drifted to the past. Back when I drove with the AC on and caressed Chu Wanding, it was so comfortable and refreshing. Just remembering it relaxes me. Suddenly, a realization hit him while typing on his phone. Wait, right now I have a special fund for buying a car. Not using it would be disrespecting the great system, wouldn't it? Then, he messaged Minhui, "Are you free this afternoon? Will you come with me to check out some cars?" Minhui replied quickly, "Sure, I don't have classes this afternoon." Inside her room, her friend chimed in from behind, teasing, Oh, they're already picking out a car together. What progress. Do you want you both head back to the dorm tonight? Tell me. Minhui, searching through her clothes, glanced at her friend and replied, "Don't talk nonsense, we're not together yet." Her friend came closer and leaned her face on Minhui's shoulder, grinning as she said, "Our Minhui is so lucky. She found a guy who's rich and handsome. Soon it'll be Chen Yuan's turn." Then she suddenly hugged Minhui tightly, enjoying the moment, and Minhui sighed, "What a pain." 1 hour later, at the 48 dealership, Chen Yuan and Minhui walked into the car showroom. A salesperson called out to them from behind, "Hello, are you here to look at cars? Which model interests you?" When they turned around, the salesperson's eyes locked onto Minhui. His expression shifted as he said, "Minhui, you, what are you doing here?" Minhui blinked in surprise and replied, Senior Chen Yang, the one who chased me in high school. How did we end up here?" She thought to herself. Chen Yang stepped forward toward Chen Yuan and asked Minhui, "Who is he?" Before Minhui could say anything, Chen Yuan casually answered, "I am her classmate, Chen Yuan." Chen Yang responded, I see. "Hello, are you here to look at cars? Which car interests you?" Chen Yuan pointed without hesitation. "We want to see the MQ." Chen Yang smiled and gestured, "The display car is over there. You could take a look and even sit inside if you want." But in his mind, arrogance bubbled up. The most basic MQ costs 500,000 yuan, and with all fees, it exceeds 600,000. This guy dresses so plain. If he doesn't have money, why bring a girl to the dealership to show off? His eyes wandered back to Minhui, and another thought crept in. Minhui is as beautiful as ever. It's no wonder she was my goddess. His imagination started running wild, picturing stunning girls pressing against luxurious cars. I'm not the same as before. Now I'm an elite salesman at this dealership, with a monthly salary over 10,000 yuan and driving a 200,000 yuan Accord. Girls these days are realistic. Someone like me is their top choice. Blushing slightly, he stepped closer to Minhui and said, "Minhui, it's been a long time. If you're free tonight, how about we catch up?" Minhui avoided eye contact and replied coldly, "Sorry, senior, I'm not free tonight. I have other plans." Sitting inside the car, Chen Yuan looked up and asked, "Hey, can you arrange a test drive?" Chen Yang's expression twitched and anger sparked in his thoughts. "I'm trying to invite Minhui. Why are you interrupting? If you can't buy it, then why do you want a test drive? You're wasting my time." Forcing a smile and wiping sweat from his forehead, he said to Chen Yuan, "Sorry, our boss took the test car today. We can't do a test drive." But hearing his words, Chen Yuan turned to Chen Yang with an intense gaze, thoughts boiling in his mind. "I'm no car newbie. Before coming in, I saw the MQ at the entrance. If you can't arrange it, then send someone who can." Without wasting another second, Chen Yuan stepped out of the car and marched straight over to the front desk. Looking directly at the receptionist, he said firmly, "Receptionist, Please send me another salesperson. I want a test drive. Suddenly, a stunning young woman appeared before him, dressed in a sleek office outfit. With a shy expression and a soft voice, she said, "Hello, I'm Chen Yuan, a sales consultant here. How can I help you?" Chen Yuan froze for a moment, unable to speak. He just stood there, silently staring at her. The salesperson glanced at our protagonist with a disappointed look, then turned his gaze away. One of his co-workers nearby leaned over and said, "Chen Yang, wasn't that your client? Why did you let Chen Na handle it?" Chen Yang replied, clearly annoyed, "I'm not in a mood to organize things and waste Chen Na's time. A student says he wants to buy an MAT and test drive it. Isn't that absurd?" His co-worker raised an eyebrow and shot back, "And what if he actually buys it? Don't regret it later." Chen Yang scoffed with confidence. "Buy it? A poor guy bringing a gorgeous girl just to show off. I've seen plenty like him." Meanwhile, inside the car during the test drive, the saleswoman turned to Chen Yuan and explained professionally, "Sir, this model is built for smart driving with a 192-line laser radar. It can drive completely autonomously. What do you think?" But Chen Yuan wasn't paying attention to the technical talk. Instead, he glanced at her and thought to himself, very professional, and his looks and figure can give Minhui a run for her money." His thoughts didn't stop there. As his mind wandered, he imagined something more. But in the auto industry, well, online you see news of salesgirls making deals with male clients just to hit their targets. As the girl continued explaining the car's features, she turned to our protagonist and asked, "Sir, are you familiar with the model specs? What's your approximate budget?" Without hesitation, our protagonist replied calmly, "Do you have any units available? I want to take the car home today." Her eyes widened in shock as she looked at him, stunned. In her mind, she couldn't believe it. How is it that a client who buys our car does so after seeing it several times, but this guy, after a single test drive without even asking the price, already wants to buy it? If he's really going to buy it, then why did Chen Yang give up on him? Quickly pulling out her phone, she glanced at it nervously, beads of sweat forming on her face. She said, "Sorry, we currently don't have any units in the store, but at another branch, a client canceled his order due to financial issues. If needed, we can bring it to the store in a week." Our protagonist, still composed, simply responded, "Perfect, I'll place the order today." The girl stared at him in disbelief, thinking to herself, over 600,000 yuan, and he buys it without hesitation. Could this be the legendary angel client? Or does he have other intentions? Then she looked at him and said with a smile, "Sir, you can take a seat here in the store. You only need to pay a 50,000 yuan deposit. I'll fetch the contract." Sometime later, back in the car showroom, the salesman walked up with a mocking smile and said to her, "Chen Na, how's the client's intention?" But she ignored him completely. Sitting down at her desk, without even glancing his way, she calmly said, "He bought it." He froze, sweat forming on his forehead, and stammered, "What? He bought it? That fast?" From the side, their co-worker, our protagonist's old friend, chimed in with a mocking expression. "The guy's just showing off. When it comes time to pay, he'll make excuses and vanish." There are plenty like him in the store. His companion, also sweating nervously, added, Yeah, true. After all these years selling cars, I've never seen a buyer so determined." But then the girl looked at both of them. With a gentle yet confident smile, she turned to them and said, "What I mean is that Mr. Shen bought it, and he plans to pay in cash." Both men stood frozen in shock. One of them looked at the other, then at the girl, and shouted, "How stupid! He lost a huge sale, what a waste!" As for our protagonist's old friend, he clenched his teeth in frustration, silently standing there, unable to say a word. Sometime later, after the paperwork was done, the girl stepped out of the office and approached our protagonist. With respectful poise, she said, "Mr. Shun, if you have any problems in the future, don't hesitate to contact me. Where will you go next? Need a ride?" Before Shun could reply, his partner looked at the girl and answered, "No, we'll take a taxi." Then, without a word, she gently took Shun's hand and led him toward the road. Hearing her partner's words, the salesgirl adjusted her glasses and thought to herself, "For a moment, I got carried away with serving the client and ended up annoying his girlfriend. What a mess." Then, saying goodbye to Chen Yuan, she smiled politely and said, "All right then, I won't accompany them any longer." As our protagonist and his partner walked down the street, Chen Yuan glanced at his phone and asked, "Hui, shall we eat now?" She didn't say much, just softly replied, "Ah." Noticing her mood, he looked over and asked, "Are you upset? Jealous?" She turned her face away and quietly said, "No." With a bright smile, he looked at her and said teasingly, "You say you're not, but your expression gives it away. She and I only have a salesperson-client relationship. It's nothing more." Blushing, she glanced back at him and replied, "Who knows? I saw you chatting happily with her, scrolling through her moments and spending so much time." He rubbed his face awkwardly and said with a little laugh, "Haha, it's just a habit. Every time I add someone, I check out their moments out of habit." Still looking away, her face a bit red, she murmured, "Then, don't do it next time." Inwardly, her thoughts swirled. Even though I still don't have a relationship with Chen Yuan, why do I suddenly feel jealous? His big spending style really attracts other women. I must think of a way to keep Chen Yuan locked down. Yes, lock him down. But our protagonist closed his eyes, laughing awkwardly as he said, "Next time, I won't let it happen. Come on, first let's eat, then hit the mall to pick out a gift." Yet in his mind, already plotting, he smirked inwardly and thought, "As if I'm not going to do it next time. I'm not that naive." The girl looked at him with an innocent face and said, "But you already bought me 2 bags yesterday." Meanwhile, in her thoughts, she worried, "Even though I have some expectations, it isn't right for Chen Yuan to keep spending so much. What if he thinks I'm too gold-digging?" But Chen Yuan, with a gentle smile, looked at her and said, "Doesn't matter, girls having several bags is normal. After all, there are 7 days in a week. They won't all be the same." Of course, giving her bags wasn't just about kindness. In his mind, he thought, "Plus, spending on girls gets me a triple refund. The more you buy, the better. That way I earn more and more." Later on, the two of them sat across from each other at a restaurant table. Chen Yuan handed her the menu and gently asked, Hui, do you want a cold or hot drink today?" But to his surprise, her mind was on a completely different wavelength. Cheeks slightly blushing, she thought, "Is Chen Yuan asking if I want something cold or hot? Is he trying to indirectly find out if I'm on my period? He wants." Then, with an embarrassed look and a soft voice, she replied, "Then a cold drink." Hearing her answer and seeing the expression on her face, our protagonist immediately realized the misunderstanding between them. His face flushed slightly as he thought, "What's with that expression on Minhui's face? Geez, where has her mind gone? But my last time with Chu Wanding was 2 months ago. With all I've saved, I really need to spend it. All right, let's make this misunderstanding even more intense." 3 hours later, the two were walking through City Alley. Our protagonist glanced at his phone. Her love points had jumped to 81. She was now adorned with luxurious accessories. Watch, 12,800 yuan. Bag, 50,500 yuan. Bracelet, 20,800 yuan. She looked at him with a gentle smile and rosy cheeks, thinking, "Chen Yuan is way too good to me. Suddenly he bought me stuff worth over 80,000 yuan. In 2 days, nearly 140,000 yuan. Just then, a notification appeared. Construction Bank. Your account ending in 0098 received 252,000 yuan on May 12th at 11:39. Current balance: 2,254,256 yuan. His eyes lit up as he thought. The system doesn't mess around with the double refund. I gave 50,000 to Dad and 50,000 for the car, and got it all back immediately. Even though these 2.17 million yuan include the final payment for the car, even if we subtract the nearly 600,000 yuan, I still have over 1.6 million yuan to spend. Turning to her with a bright smile, he asked, Hui, how about not going back to the dorm tonight? She responded with a slight, wordless smile, her blush deepening as she averted her eyes. Half an hour later, room 808, Grand Magnate Hotel, our protagonist was in the bathroom, humming to himself while bathing, lost in his own world. Meanwhile, on the bed in the room, his partner lay on her stomach, scrolling through her phone. As she stared in new message, she thought in her mind, Chen Ling asked why I haven't returned to the dorm yet. How do I tell her? Should I just say I'm with Chen Yuan? So embarrassing. Just then, our protagonist stepped out of the bathroom, drying his hair with a towel. With water still dripping from his shoulders, he called out casually, Hui, are you ready? Hearing his voice, she looked up toward him with a red face. Her cheeks blushed even deeper as she stared at him, and she thought, Sorry, Ling, but he gave me too much. Then, without hesitation, she quickly typed back on her phone, Ling, I won't be back tonight. If anyone asks, say I went to a relative's house. Then Chen Yuan gently wrapped his arms around Hui from behind as they lay on the bed. She clutched the sheets nervously, her face turning red. Try to hold back the sound in her throat, she softly said, Chen Yuan, I still haven't. He leaned in close, placing a soft kiss on her neck, and with a reassuring tone, he said, It's okay, I like your scent. She closed her eyes slowly, relaxing into his warmth, her voice barely above a whisper as she said his name. With trust in her heart, she softly added, Be gentle. Time seemed to pause around them. The world outside faded as the two of them simply shared the moment. No rush, no pressure, just closeness and quiet understanding. Some time later, the room was filled with nothing but the soft sound of breathing. The two lay side by side, the glow from the curtains casting a calm light over them. Hui rested against him, eyes drifting, and in her mind, she quietly thought, This isn't as scary as Chun Ling said. A shy smile crept onto her face. Whatever came next, in this moment she felt safe. And as for our protagonist, dark circles started to show under his eyes while he held Hui in his arms. In his mind, he sighed. I didn't expect Hui to take everything so naturally. It felt amazing. But man, I'm seriously out of shape. 2 months without working out, and I'm wiped. But just as he was about to close his eyes, Hui stirred beside him. Rubbing her eyes gently, she looked up and said, Chen Yuan, what if we just stayed like this a little longer? He blinked, suddenly alert, a bit of nervous sweat forming as he sat up halfway. Huh, Vivi, can we rest just a bit more first? But then, she reached out, holding his hand against her cheek with a soft smile and whispered, No, I just want to be close to you right now. Early in the morning the next day, just as our protagonist returns to the dorm, he's holding his phone in his hand, thinking to himself. The system also offers refunds for paying off debts. Between various loan apps and credit cards, I owe a total of 52,000 yuan. First, I'll clear those debts. As he steps into the dorm, he looks at the bank messages on his phone and thinks again. Then there's the 100,000 yuan I owe Li Yuhang. Well, my family went bankrupt. Before, my fake friends avoided me, but Li Yuhang, without hesitation, helped me in a time of need. Suddenly, one of his dorm room friends walks up behind him, brushing his teeth. He says to our protagonist, "You bastard, where were you last night? Didn't you come back to the dorm? Did you see the messages in the class group? There's a class dinner tonight. Are you going?" Our protagonist looks at the group message on his phone and replies, "That damn Li Jianpeng bought a car, and I suspect he was the one who asked the monitor to organize the dinner. If I go, it'll only be to watch his personal show. How disgusting. But if I don't go, I'll lose the 200 yuan class fee." He looks over at his friend and says, "This Li Jianpeng is really adorable when he shows off. You all go, I'm not going." One of our protagonist's friends messages him on his phone, "Yuan, it's been ages since we last met. Come tonight for dinner and drinks, relax." At that moment, a new notification pops up in front of our protagonist. It reads, "Task. A perfect life not only needs the admiration of the opposite sex, but also a solid business foundation. Time limit task. The host will receive 1 million yuan exclusively for investment. You must invest the entire amount within a week. Task reward. All income from any commercial activity will be doubled." Seeing the notification, our protagonist smiles and thinks to himself, "Is this time a business-related task? It came at the perfect moment. I was just thinking about what to do with all this money in my account. I need a legitimate income source. Li Yuhang's bar is under renovation. Maybe I can invest in his bar to have a little fun." Soon, another message appears from his close friend, Li Yuhang. "Chen Yuan, it's been a long time. Come tonight for dinner and drinks, relax." Our protagonist replies with a smile, "Send your location tonight. Dad will join you for some fun." Later that night, inside the private Dragon Lounge at Nanjing Restaurant, a group of people is seated on a sofa. One of the boys, holding a girl in his arm, says with confidence, "Who else are we waiting for, Li Xiao? I am Stadovan." This boy is none other than Lin Guangyao. From across the room, one of the guys, wearing glasses, responds, "Haven't all the important bros arrived yet?" From his side, another boy chimes in, "Exactly, the important people never arrive late." The host of the party, our protagonist's close friend, looks at them while holding a glass in his hand. "Don't get impatient. There are fruits and snacks on the table. Grab something while you wait. Chen Yuan will be here soon." Hearing this, Lin Guangyao, confused, asks, "Chen Yuan? Wasn't his family supposed to be bankrupt? He's no longer in our circle, so why did you invite him?" Hearing that, Li Yuhang looks at the boy and says, "I'm picking up the tab tonight. You're not spending your money. Why are you complaining? Chen Yuan is my lifelong friend. It's not the same." The boy nods in reply. "If Li Xiao says to wait, then we wait." Just then, the girl sitting beside him suddenly blushes, looking embarrassed. She says to him, "Brother Yao, you're such a pain. You don't want to be my boyfriend, yet you always touch me." Without even looking at her, he responds, "Cousin, didn't you say your girlfriend was coming tonight? Why hasn't she arrived?" The boy wearing glasses, smiling, chimes in, "She's stuck in traffic. She'll be here in about 10 minutes. As he hears this, the boy's thoughts race. "My cousin's family has always depended on mine. If it weren't for me, they wouldn't even have the right to be at this gathering. I don't know what stroke of luck my cousin had to land such an amazing girlfriend." He imagines the girl in his mind and thinks again. Especially with that tight skirt and white blouse. She's an office temptation no man can resist. After all, my cousin and his girlfriend aren't even married. Maybe I'll get a chance. Just then, the protagonist finally walks into the party, beaming with a bright smile. He says to his friends, "Sorry, I kept you all waiting, friends." Hearing our protagonist's words, his friend immediately shouts, "Why the hell are you so late?" Our protagonist replies casually, "There was heavy traffic. I suspect the Didi driver took a detour through the worst jammed areas." Hearing that explanation, the boy beside him gently taps his shoulder and laughs. "Damn, Some drivers are so unethical. You should report him. Meanwhile, the boy who had the girl in his arms earlier looks over at the protagonist, thinking to himself, "Did you come by taxi? Everyone here arrived in their luxury cars, and you took Didi? No wonder you got stuck in traffic." Then, with a sarcastic tone, he says out loud, "How lucky you are. Everyone came in their own car, but you already have a personal driver, duh." Just then, the door opens, and the girl from the car showroom appears with an awkward expression. She looks at the group and says, "Sorry, it was rush hour, heavy traffic, I was late." The boy with glasses, seeing her arrive, quickly stands up, face flushed red. Raising his hand high, he announces to the group, "Chen Yuan, my girlfriend, is a sales rep at the 45 dealership Yao Yao. If any of you need to buy a car, you can contact her." Feeling proud and superior, a mocking smile crosses his face as he thinks, "Money-wise, I might not outdo you all, but my girlfriend is prettier than yours." But Chen Yuan doesn't even acknowledge him. Instead, her eyes nervously lock onto the protagonist. Beads of sweat form on her forehead as she thinks, "That's Mr. Shun, the one who picked up his car yesterday. Mr. Shun didn't even greet me, so I'll act like it's our first meeting." Then the girl walks over and sits close beside her boyfriend, the boy with glasses. 40 minutes later, the host of the party, Chen Yuan's close friend, suddenly stands up and raises his glass, calling for everyone's attention. "Listen up, everyone. I want to upgrade the bar I'm setting up. You're all my good friends, anyone interested in investing and growing the business together. The estimated cost is 2.4 million, and I'm willing to give up 30% of the shares, which means an investment of around 700,000 yuan. Then, with a slightly embarrassed expression, he coughs lightly and adds, "What do you think?" But as his words land, silence spreads across the room like a wave. The boy who had been holding the girl in his arms from the start narrows his eyes, thinking, Li Xiao's family earns tens of millions a year. Does he really need others to invest 700,000 yuan? It's probably because his previous investments failed and his father no longer funds him. Meanwhile, the boy with glasses avoids eye contact, thinking nervously, "I can't participate in this. I'd have to save for 2 years to gather 700,000 yuan. Another boy sitting beside him frowns and thinks to himself, "We came here to eat, not to invest. This isn't Li Xiao's style." And yet another boy quietly stares at his drink, thinking, "At times like these, whoever speaks is a fool." Watching all of them fall silent, the host of the party clenches his glass and thinks bitterly, "These guys always take advantage of me for food and drinks, and I always foot the bill. When they need money, they don't hesitate to ask." Today, when Chen Yuan is struggling, everyone acts as if they're dead. Lowering his eyes to his hand wrapped around the glass, he finally speaks out loud. "What's up? Did everyone go silent after dinner? Bros, can someone at least say something?" Then suddenly, the boy Lin Guangyao, sweating from his face and holding a glass in his hand, speaks up. "That's right, Li Xiao. I don't think we're at the point of needing investments yet. If it's just a liquidity issue, we can all chip in a few thousand to help open the place. And then when you make money, you pay us back." Even the boy with glasses, also sweating a little, quickly chimes in to back him up. Yeah. After all, if we become partners halfway, it wouldn't be fair to you. That way, when you make money, you don't lose out. Isn't that right, everyone?" Meanwhile, the boy sitting beside them silently puts something in his mouth and thinks to himself, "We've all seen Li Xiao's investment track record. The hot pot restaurant and the KTV he opened before were disasters. Now he wants to open a chill bar. How is that any different from throwing money away?" Across from them, on a different sofa, a boy in a yellow t-shirt leans back with an annoyed expression, thinking, "If you have money, lend it privately. Why drag everyone into this?" And sitting beside him, another boy drinking quietly lifts his glass and mutters in his mind, "Damn it, we all depend on our families, and we don't even have enough pocket money. While all this plays out, the boy who organized the party, Li Yuheng, the protagonist's close friend, sits there with a disappointed expression, staring into his drink, thinking to himself, I wanted to partner with everyone to do business and make money, but if it turns into borrowing and getting into debt, then it makes no sense. I underestimated these so-called brothers, especially Lin Guangyao, who does nothing useful. I clearly talked about investing and becoming partners, but he turned it into a loan. But then, Li Yuheng suddenly put his glass down on the table and said, borrowing is a whole different story. If no one's interested, then forget it. He leaned back with a bitter expression, clearly fed up. And Li Guangyao, still playing it cool and arrogant, laughed as if nothing happened and tried to steer things away. Exactly, Li Xiao, talking about investments and partners makes no sense. Let's just keep eating, drinking, and having fun. Hearing all those words, our protagonist didn't look at anyone. Instead, he thought to himself quietly, his expression unreadable. I've seen their faces ever since my family went bankrupt, Li Yuheng. How can you keep pinning your hopes on them? They're all parasites who can only squander money from their families. And right then, Li Yuheng stood up, the host of the party, his voice low and disappointed. If you want to have fun, go ahead, I'm out. But just as the mood sank, our protagonist, without even glancing at them, said calmly and with confidence, Hey, what if that's 700,000? I invested. The room instantly fell silent. Forks froze mid-air, glasses stopped clinking. Everyone turned to look at him in disbelief. Then Li Guangyao, smirking with a mocking tone, raised his glass and looked right at Chen Yuan. Chen Yuan, don't joke like that. It's not the first time we've met. Another boy sitting on the same sofa joined in, supporting his friend with a scoff. Yeah, showing off makes no sense. And then, one more guy walked over to the protagonist, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said with a condescending smile, Why don't you go to the bathroom, wash your face, and clear your head? Li Xiao isn't in the mood to put up with your nonsense. Even the glass-wearing boy couldn't stay silent after hearing our protagonist's words. He looked straight at him and said, Brother, I'm older than you and have more experience. There are things you need to do according to your capabilities. It's not just about measuring your strength, it's about not talking for no reason. And the annoying, arrogant boy, still holding a glass in his hand, flashed a mocking smile and added, Yes, Chen Yuan, don't you remember how you got here? If you want, I'll pay for your round-trip taxi fare. Meanwhile, the girl who had met our protagonist in the car showroom was sitting on the sofa, sweating slightly, staring quietly at him. Thoughts swirled in her mind. Huh? Mr. Shan wants to invest 700,000? Why does everyone think he's showing off? Just yesterday, he bought a car for 600,000 yuan. Isn't it normal for someone with that kind of buying power to invest 700,000? She lowered her head slightly, bracing her thoughts, eyes still locked onto our protagonist. Even though I want to help Mr. Shan, as an outsider, wouldn't it be problematic to suddenly jump in and defend him? What should I do? But just then, ignoring all the mockery around him, our protagonist turned calmly to his friend and said, I already transferred the 700,000, check it. His friend looked at him, stunned, quickly pulling out his phone. Then his eyes widened as a notification popped up. He stuttered out in disbelief. Chen Yuan you. On the screen, a bank message glowed clearly. Industrial and Commercial Bank. Your account ending in 5854 received 700,000 yuan on May 13th at 9:42. The arrogant boy furrowed his brows and asked Li Xiao. Li Xiao, did something happen? But Li Xiao, still frozen in surprise, didn't say a word. He just turned his phone screen toward him and said, You, just look for yourself. And seeing the bank transfer message on the phone, the arrogant boy's face twisted in shock, sweat rolling down his forehead. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. The amount of Chen Yuan's transfer? Why are there so many zeros? Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What the hell? They really are 700,000. And from across the room, the girl looked at our protagonist. Her thoughts stirred with confusion and awe. Did the situation suddenly change? From behind, a boy stood up and looked toward Lin Xiao, asking, "What does the message say, Lin Xiao?" But Lin Xiao remained still, not even glancing back as he replied, "I have some things to take care of at home, so I can't stay. See you another day." The boy with glasses stood up too, calling out, "No, cousin, what's going on?" Lin Xiao turned to him with an annoyed look and snapped, "Don't ask, you go too. Your uncle and Anne are looking for you." The boy blinked, confused, and said, "No, they haven't called me." Meanwhile, Lin Xiao clenched his teeth, turning his gaze toward Chen Yuan with envy boiling in his mind. "My cousin has no tact, but oh well, it's not worth arguing. But that Chen Yuan, if he's got so much money, why did he take a deity? Showing off. He stole all the attention tonight." Just then, another boy approached the host and glanced down at Lin Xiao's phone screen, thinking, why did Lin Xiao change his attitude so much? He asked, "Li Xiao, what does the message say? Can I see it?" But before anyone could respond, the boy who came over walked toward the door. Holding it open, he said without turning back, I've also got stuff to do at home. I'm leaving first." Another guest stood from his seat and added, "Same here, Li Xiao. See you next time." The boy in glasses looked around in panic at everyone leaving and cried out, "No, guys, what's going on? Why is everyone leaving?" His girlfriend turned to him and said, "We're leaving too." Just as the girl from the car showroom stepped out of the room, her boyfriend hurried after her and questioned, "What are you saying? How do you know they were checking the transfer records? You didn't even see the message." Without even looking back, she calmly responded, "Chen Yuan bought an MQ yesterday, paid in cash." He grabbed her hand and asked again, "Really?" She looked him in the eyes without changing her expression and replied, "Why would I lie to you? I have his purchase contract on my phone." He paused, then said, "Nah, I'm not blaming you or anything, but if you knew he was well off, you should have told me earlier. Next time, just give me a heads up." Then suddenly, the girl walked away from her boyfriend and said, "What next time, Xiahaijia? Today I realized what kind of person you are. One mistake for me. Let's not contact each other again." Meanwhile, inside the party room, one of the protagonist's friends sitting beside him placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "If I'd known you were that rich, I wouldn't have organized this meeting today. What a waste of money." But without paying much attention to his talk, the protagonist calmly poured wine into his glass and said, "Now you know. Those guys aren't trustworthy. It's fine for fun, but seriously, you can't rely on them." Then, suddenly, he turned to his friend with a smile and said, "Tell me about your idea for the bar. Even though I'm only a minority shareholder, I want to be involved in the planning." Hearing that, his friend looked at him and replied, "Okay. First, I'll tell you my plan. For the next 30 minutes, Chen Yuan discussed the bar's decor style and operations with Li Yuhang. After the conversation, Li Yuhang said with admiration, "You're pretty good. You didn't waste your time in college. You have an interesting vision for business." Hearing his words, the protagonist responded with excitement and confidence. "This is called commercial talent, but I don't have time to oversee the place every day, and neither do you. We need to find a manager." With a slightly annoyed tone, Li Yuhang replied, "Whatever you say, whatever you say." An hour later, the girl from the car showroom messaged Chen Yuan, saying, "Mr. Shen, the car you reserved is about to arrive at the store. You can come on Friday to pay the balance and pick it up." Seeing that message, the protagonist replied, "No rush. Are you free tomorrow night? I have some specific questions about the car I want to ask in person." As she read the message, Chen Na adjusted her hair, sitting on her bed, and thought to herself, What's going on, Mr. Shun? At the same time, the protagonist looked at his phone and thought, right now, I only have Minhui as my key source of income, and the refunds are limited. I need to expand and make the most of the system. He sent another message, tomorrow, see you at the restaurant on the 4th floor of the mall. He then thought again, besides, Chen Yuan is beautiful and very charming. Spending money on someone like her isn't a bad investment. The next day, in the restaurant, Chen Yuan sat at a table in her usual office dress, gazing out the window. She rested her face on her hand and thought to herself, Mr. Shun still hasn't arrived. Did I come too early? Suddenly, her superior entered the restaurant. Spotting her, he thought, Chen Yuan? What's she doing here? And why is she wearing the store uniform? In the store, I never had the chance to talk to this beauty, but today, I finally do. With excitement and a slightly red face, he turned to his friends and said, You all go find somewhere to eat. I've got other things to do. This man was Chen Na's general manager at the Ford's dealership, Zhang Xianyong. One of his friends, looking back at him, said, Mr. Zhang, he's busy, so we're leaving first. Then suddenly, another friend of the general manager came out of the restaurant with his buddy and said, Do you think Chen Na will agree to Mr. Zhang? The other man replied, I don't think so. Chen Na doesn't seem like that kind of person. At the same time, Chen Na's ex-boyfriend, the glass-wearing guy from the party, appeared in the restaurant and overheard their conversation. The two men continued talking, and one of them said, Don't be so sure. Why would a girl come here and eat alone? His friend asked, What do you mean? Then, leaning closer and whispering into his ear, he said, Maybe Chen Na came here on purpose, hoping Zhang Xianyong would see her. Hearing that, his friend responded, Chen Na always seems so serious. I didn't expect that. But from behind them, Chen Na's ex-boyfriend stood silently, eavesdropping on the conversation. He thought to himself, Chen Na setting something up? With who? Then the scene shifted to Chen Na, still sitting at her table, waiting for the protagonist. Her superior, Zhang Xianyong, walked up confidently and said, Chen Na, what a coincidence. Are you eating here too? Are you alone? Mind if I join? But with an uninterested expression, she replied, Mr. Zhang, sorry, I already have a date with a friend. He looked at her and thought, Little girl, you're still playing hard to get. Placing his hand on the table, he said again, Chen Na, after all, I'm your superior. What does it matter if you have a friend? Shall we eat together? Ha! With an annoyed expression, she looked at him and said, I'm sorry. Please keep a proper distance. You already have a family. You shouldn't do this. Then, without shame, the man sat down on the empty seat beside her and said with a shameless grin, Ah, is it because I have a family? That's easy to fix. I'll get a divorce. Meanwhile, outside the restaurant, all over the mall, her ex-boyfriend searched everywhere for her, thinking to himself, Did Chen Na reject me to go after another man? You underestimate me. I earn between $400,000 and $500,000 a year, and I have a car worth over $300,000. In what way am I inferior? Then, through the glass, he spotted Chen Na inside the restaurant and thought furiously, Damn it. Did I lose to that fat pig? With tears in his eyes, he stormed into the restaurant, pointed at Chen Na's superior, and shouted, You two, traitor dogs, were having an affair behind my back, right? Startled, Chen Na looked at him, confused, and said, Huh? What are you saying? At the same time, her superior turned to him with an annoyed expression and said, Excuse me, who are you? Furious, the glass-wearing guy punched Zhang Xianyong in the face and shouted, I'm the one who should be asking who you are. After getting punched by the boy, Chen Na's superior also got angry. Holding his fist in one hand, he shouted, Where did this crazy dog come from that dares to hit me? Just then, the protagonist entered the restaurant and saw the chaos unfolding. Looking at the scene in front of him, he thought, Xiahaijia? What kind of scene is this? At the same time, Chen Yuan tried to avoid the fight as people around them started walking away, glancing at the commotion. Seeing her, the protagonist thought, caught in an infidelity mess? If it weren't for that fat man who took the fall, I'd be the one lying on the floor right now. He quickly stepped forward, grabbed Chen Na's hand, and gently pulled her away, saying, "Miss Chen, let's get out of here, ignore them. Let's leave first." Hearing his words, Chen Na's face turned a little red as she looked at him quietly. A while later, inside the car, she held the steering wheel in her hands and stared ahead. She softly said, "Actually, I was only with Xie Haijia for 2 weeks." It was at that dinner when I realized how horrible his character was. Luckily, I left him that very night. The protagonist replied calmly, "It's better to discover someone's true nature early. Now everything's fine, the matter is over." But her mood darkened a little. Looking down, she said quietly, "It's not over. Zhang Xianyong, the one who got hit, is my boss. Now that he was beaten for no reason, I don't know how he'll treat me." Hearing that, the protagonist answered with a bit of excitement in his voice, "A boss like that doesn't deserve you working for him. You better change jobs." She looked at him with a disappointed expression and replied, "It's not that easy to find work now. If I change stores, I'll have to start over, and all the customers I've built up over the years will be gone." As they passed by a shop, Chen Na looked out the window and continued, "The truth is, being in sales for so long is exhausting. I also want to switch industries. For example, open a small cafe. If I'm in a good mood, it'll stay open longer. If not, I close early. It'd be wonderful. But a cafe costs between 300,000 and 400,000 yuan. I don't know when I'll be able to save that much." Hearing that, the protagonist said with excitement, "You want to open a cafe? Don't worry if you don't have enough money. How about if someone's willing to invest?" In his mind, he thought, besides the 700,000 from Li Yuhang, I just got 300,000 yuan in exclusive investment funds. Hearing his words, she reached out her hand toward him with a playful expression and said jokingly, "Then I'll resign immediately and work for him. No doubt about it." He doesn't take it seriously. With a confident smile, he replied, "Fine, then resign tomorrow. I'll invest 300,000 yuan to open a cafe, and you'll work for me." But before her hand could reach him, it stopped halfway. She looked at him with a shocked expression. At that moment, her hidden affection spiked. Her love points quietly increased to 64. She couldn't say anything, only stared at him in silence. The protagonist looked at Chen Na and thought to himself, I was a bit worried I wouldn't win his favor along the way, but new money tree has arrived." Just then, Chen Na turned toward him, her eyes wide as she said, "Are you serious, Chen Yuan? Are you joking?" But Chen Yuan, as confident as ever, leaned back and replied, "I'm dead serious. What's up? Don't you want to work for me? When the cafe's up and running, I'll pay you 12,000 yuan a month, plus bonuses. If the cafe does well for 3 months, I'll give you a 200,000 yuan car. That car you got is a bit old. It's time for an upgrade." Hearing all that, Chen Na stared at him with an intense gaze. In her mind, she imagined herself trapped inside a cage. No sales pressure, work 3 months and get a car, and my annual income would top 300,000 yuan? Wait a minute, is Chen Yuan planning to keep me around? She blushed slightly and looked at him again, saying softly, "Chen Yuan, it's not worth doing this for me." Deep down, she thought, even though these conditions sound tempting, I don't want to be a cage canary, especially not as a third wheel. But Chen Yuan, sitting with his arms crossed and full of calm confidence, responded, "Don't overthink it. I'm just planning to open a chain of cafes, and the first one is just a pilot project. So our relationship will be strictly boss and employee." With a faintly shy expression, Chen Na replied, "I see. Then let me think about it." Suddenly, a message popped up on Chen Yuan's phone. It was from Minhui. She texted, "Chen Yuan, are you free tonight? If so, let's go out for a cold drink. Sweat began forming on his forehead as he looked at the message. In his mind, he thought, a cold drink? Does we men have that much energy? He quickly typed back a reply. We can grab a drink, but we should pace ourselves a bit. Then, looking at Chen Na, who was still driving, he said, Miss Chun, I've got something to do. I'm out. Let me know soon when you made up your mind. Room 808, Grand Magnate Hotel. Chen Yuan stepped inside silently, not saying a word. The moment he closed the door behind him, he suddenly felt arms wrap around his waist from behind. It was Minhui, hugging him tightly as she whispered, Chen Yuan, miss you. Feeling her warmth from behind, he gently responded, Hui, I miss you too. But just then, Minhui sniffed the air with a sudden shift in tone. Narrowing her eyes, she said sharply, Hui, I miss you too. Wait. Chen Yuan, you smell like another woman. Caught off guard, Chen Yuan quickly sniffed his own clothes. Really? He muttered, then thought to himself, maybe it's because I got in Chen Na's car and ended up with her perfume? Minhui didn't wait for explanations. She shoved him lightly to the side, glaring at him. Tell me, have you been with other women behind my back? But Chen Yuan, smooth as ever, pulled her gently into his arms and replied with a soft smile, Impossible. I only have eyes for you. But today I went to the dealership to handle car paperwork, and maybe I picked up some perfume from other girls. You know, the sales girls at the dealership wear a lot of perfume. Her face turned red, the anger melting just a bit. She pouted and said, All right, but next time you go out with another girl, let me know first. And keep some distance with that sales girl, got it? Without hesitation, Chen Yuan replied, Of course. He smiled at her, a bead of sweat sliding down his cheek, while thinking inwardly, it's not about being unfaithful or not. The system task is to spend more on the opposite sex and make money back through refunds. I can't stick to just one money tree. But before the moment could stretch longer, Minhui playfully pushed him toward the bed. Looking back at him with a teasing smile, she said, Okay, I'm going to shower first. Chen Yuan, still composed, simply replied, Shower later. Chen Yuan wrapped his arms around Minhui from behind, his hands resting gently on her abdomen. In a soft voice, he spoke again. Her cheeks flushed red as she responded shyly, If I don't shower, I'll have. But before she could finish, Chen Yuan pulled her t-shirt off. Now, above her, looking straight in her eyes, he smiled and said, I like the smell of not showering. Minhui looked up at him, her face even redder now. Then we're even, Chen Yuan. I like your smell too. With a grin, Chen Yuan leaned against her on the bed and said passionately, These are my lines, Hui. You've really ignited a fire in my heart. And so, the two of them gave in to the moment, and they shared a moment that brought them even closer. After a while, Minhui hugged Chen Yuan tightly and whispered in a gentle voice, Chen Yuan, I really like you. 2 hours later, she looked up at him again, her face still shy. Chen Yuan, I still want. He froze in place, eyes wide in shock. Wait, I'm gonna shower. I've sweated a lot. It's sticky, I'm not comfortable. Sometime later, after overtime round 2, Chen Yuan walked toward the bathroom, utterly drained. He thought to himself, Hui has way more energy than Chu Wanding. She's happy, but I'm exhausted. He turned back to glance at Hui lying in bed, satisfied and calm. A pink glowing 90 hovered over her head, and Chen Yuan's thoughts rolled on. I don't get it. How does this kind of exercise boost Hui's affinity so much? Last time it went up to 86 in one night, and today, after 2 rounds, it hit 90. Just then, a notification popped up in front of him. Detected. The host is a member of the opposite sex with an affinity level above 90. Affinity task complete. Reward granted. 1 lottery ticket for 1 million yuan. 1 spending voucher for 1 million yuan. One skill, ruthless power. Eyes sparkling, Chen Yuan grinned and thought, a 1 million yuan lottery ticket? With that kind of money, it'll be easier to explain where it came from, and I can use it to pay off my family's debts. Wait, a ruthless X-power skill? Is that a reward? Then in the future, I'll be able to completely dominate? He turned his eyes briefly back toward Minhui, then narrowed them with resolve and thought, sorry, Hui, I'm about to unleash my power. From now on, you won't control me. You'll be under my control. As he equipped the new skill from the system, a surge of energy rushed through his body. He could feel it clearly, pulsing through every inch of him. Incredible. I can clearly feel a huge surge of energy between us. The rewards for reaching an affinity level of 90 with the opposite sex are amazing. Images of Chun Na and Hui appeared in his mind, standing opposite each other. It looks like the system gives rewards based on what I need. But reaching an affinity level of 90 with the opposite sex. Although Li Xiao surpassed 60, getting to Hui's level will be a long road. A bright smile appeared on his face as he thought, Chen Na, with her long legs and black stockings, also broke 60, but for now, I need to advance step by step. I really don't know when the next girl with an affinity level above 90 will show up or what rewards I'll get. But I won't worry about that for now. The important thing is to test the power the system gave me. His gaze shifted to Hui, who was sitting comfortably on the bed, watching him. He looked directly at her and said, Hui. She responded without flinching, What's up, Chen Yuan? Weren't you going to shower? He walked over to her, held her hand firmly, and said with excitement, No, I changed my mind. Hui raised a brow, but simply said, Get dressed then. Instead, Chen Yuan started up his round 2 of their emotional connection test, again, this time from the back. Hui let out a surprised sound. Oh? Chen Yuan, why do you seem different now? Meanwhile, elsewhere, Chen Na was lying on her sofa in her room, chatting on the phone with her friend. She said, Qian, a guy offered me 300,000 yuan to help me open a store, and he said that after 3 months he'd give me a 200,000 yuan car. Do you think this guy wants to keep me? But he already has. Her friend, balancing the phone between her shoulder and cheek, instantly replied, Nah, don't tell me you ran into a scammer? Chen Na's voice softened as she said, No, I've seen him a few times. Last time he bought a car with me. A moment later, her friend's voice rang out from the phone. How old is he? I remembered that the buyers at your dealership are usually middle-aged men. He's only 21, Chen Na replied. Her friend gasped. So young and already driving a luxury car? Is he handsome? She paused for a second before saying a little handsome. Without missing a beat, her friend exclaimed, Is he going to spend 300,000 yuan to help you open a store and then gift you a 200,000 yuan car? A guy so rich, handsome, and young, what more could you ask for? Chen Na slowly got up and walked to the window, gazing outside. But he's 5 or 6 years younger than me. Her friend quickly responded, So what? They say if a woman is 3 years older, it's like hugging a gold bar. In his case, roughly speaking, it's like hugging 2 gold bars. Chen Na's expression shifted slightly with concern. But he has a girlfriend. Her friend brushed it off. A girlfriend isn't the same as a wife. Nah, are you kidding? Even if he were married, under those conditions, it wouldn't matter. Besides, in this situation, you could easily take her spot. Eyes widening, Chen Na gasped, What are you saying? But her friend just laughed and teased. If you're so indecisive, pass me this little millionaire. I'll put up with everything for you. Chen Na raised an eyebrow and said, Don't you have a boyfriend? With zero hesitation, her friend replied, And what about my boyfriend? If a man like that kept me, I'd be single in a second. Chen Na shook her head and said softly, I'm not going to go along with that. Her friend chuckled, then said before hanging up, All right, my boyfriend just arrived. Talk later. After hanging up the phone, Chen Yuan stood silently by the window, her thoughts wandering. As she stared out into the distance, one name echoed her mind, Chen Yuan. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy this manhwa as much as I do. And guess what? There's another brand new manhwa recap dropping at the same time. So make sure to check it out. You're definitely going to love it. Thanks for watching.